There has been a lot of conversation about Dragon Age the Veilguard this fall, and normally I try to tune out of the conversation before I can play the game myself and judge it then. This time it was nearly impossible, and honestly I was getting annoyed hearing the game mentioned online because nothing constructive ever came out of those conversations. And it sucks because I'm a huge fan of the series and BioWare in general, and I wanted to get excited about this new release. And to be honest, BioWare, or more specifically EA's marketing team, didn't do the game any benefit with the uneven marketing material like the first reveal trailer. When the game finally came out, I was a bit shocked. I was shocked how much the online conversation had mischaracterized the game and found myself absolutely falling in love with it. Yes, it makes drastic changes from the previous games in the series, but is that such a terrible thing when the end product is really good? I don't think so. Veilguard manages to carve out a path where it can stand firmly as its own thing while honoring what came before. Dragon Age the Veilguard picks up where Inquisition left things. Solas is on a path of breaking the veil to the Fade, which would unleash untold horrors into the world of Thedas. Returning from previous games is Varric and Harding, who are chasing him, and joining them is our protagonist Rook, who they had hired to join them in this quest. Things don't go as planned and two evil elven gods get released from their ancient prison, so Rook needs to start gathering a team to fight this new threat and deal with Solas at the same time. The main story of the game is good. It's nothing groundbreaking, but delivers some really spectacular set pieces and character focused moments. I especially loved how the story handles Solas and his dubious moral code and the whole backstory revolving him and the elven gods. The game does take some liberties with the lore and canonizes some choices from the previous games, but like you might have guessed, I'm not that big of a purist where it would bother me, especially when it also has meaningful continuation to some of the biggest questions in the series. The game definitely relies much less on choices than previous entries, but to say there are no choices is just straight out lying. The few big choices have interesting consequences, which actually ended up affecting the relationship between my favorite characters in the game, and it even had a small effects on the gameplay. I was also impressed by how the game took my chosen background into consideration. I was expecting a bare minimum, but the game did go out of its way to make me feel that I was really part of the Antivan Crows and that Treviso was my hometown. And in modern BioWare style, emotion-based responses in dialogue are back, and it's definitely weaker than in some of the previous games, but still provides enough variety. Sure, sometimes the choices didn't come out as I was thinking of, but that has always been the problem with this system. The dialogue overall is very modern, I would say. Some might refer to it as marvelly in how the writing can be corny or even cheesy, sometimes slightly undercutting some of the darker moments of the story, but for the most part I think it fits the quirky and lovable cast of characters.
Again, I also didn't expect to learn that my gods are rampaging around and trying to end the world.
And speaking of characters, where the game absolutely shines is in the group of companions you recruit throughout the game. The game handles companions differently from previous games, where in the previous titles a lot of the companions' charm came from them reacting to your choices, but as this time choices are not that big of a focus in the game, the companions' personal stories get to shine more. Each companion gets a multi-step storyline with unique missions in unique locations, and their character growth is wonderful to see. And not only are the companion storylines engaging, I loved how much dialogue there was between the companions. The characters felt interested not just talking with Rook, but with each other as well, and it was such a fun thing to see that characters could even develop romantic relationships between each other if you chose not to pursue them yourself. I wasn't sure about a couple of the companions at first, but at the end, Veilguard's cast might just be my favorite of all the Dragon Age games.
Okay, boy, that's enough for one day.
Oh, but he's having fun.
Beside the story and character focus, the gameplay has seen massive changes as well. The series has been going this direction since Dragon Age 2, but it finally fully embraces the action combat and it works surprisingly well. I played as a rogue and switching between sword and ranged combat felt really nice. You cannot control your party members directly anymore, but you can pause the combat to activate companion abilities to create combos in a very Mass Effect style, which brings a simple but satisfying strategy to the combat. The only real issue with the combat is that when there are a lot of enemies on screen, it adds so much visual clutter, so noticing cues for parrying becomes really frustrating, especially with the rogue class. There also could have been a bit more enemy variety, especially in bosses and mini-bosses, as they use really similar attack patterns even though it's technically a different enemy. What does elevate the gameplay is the fun gear system. On surface, it's a basic rarity-based gear system with bunch of stat benefits, but what I really enjoyed about it is the upgrade system, where you can upgrade gear with materials, but to really get everything out of them you need to find duplicates which unlock new effects and traits for the equipment. There is also a nice amount of variety where you can really make builds to suit your style. For example, most of the game I played with a bleed build where my swords did poor damage, but stacked bleed very well, which was fun, and the game makes it easy enough to switch things around so you don't feel stuck in a build. The game also has a great transmogging system for the gear, and I highly appreciate that. Complementing the combat is the great level design and mission structure. Long gone are the large open worlds of Inquisition, and in their place is bunch of semi-open areas which are more like multiple interwoven paths, and I love how certain quests naturally open up new areas, so in the early game you don't get the urge to burn out clearing out the whole maps. I do wish there were more puzzles, as few of the puzzles were quite entertaining for me. And in addition to these more open areas, there are more linear missions that can really provide the epic spectacle. It also helps that the game looks absolutely incredible. Some of the areas invoke that magical feeling that most fantasy games strive for. The music also nicely adds to the ambience. I was a bit surprised how subtle most of the score is, considering that part of it is composed by Hans Zimmer, but his iconic bombastic style wasn't apparent this time, which I think was a good choice. And finally, I want to give a huge shout out to the PC port. I've been so tired of getting broken PC port after broken PC port these past few years, but the Veilguard's PC version is nearly flawless. Providing amazing looking picture quality with stable performance feels such a breath of fresh air in this current AAA PC gaming space. So fair to say, I really love Dragon Age the Veilguard. I had some minor issues with the combat and the dialogue, but nothing that hurt my overall experience with the game. But as I was enjoying the game, I did start to wonder, where does this insane hostility towards the game come from? I think a large part is from the weird expectations that people have. I feel like there's a big group of people who hold Dragon Age Origins in such a high pedestal, and for some nonsensical reason expect or want the game to be like it, even when Dragon Age hasn't been like Origins, well, since Origins. The big step already happened with Dragon Age 2 to a different style of game, and that has continued ever since. Putting the blame on the new team leading the development is kinda toxic when the original team already decided to go to a different direction than Origins was. And of course some people take it even further by claiming that the game is some woke or DEI or whatever nonsense word of the day is. God forbid a fictional story can have some pro-LGBTQ messaging. It's interesting to see these stories told in a video game, and isn't that the whole purpose of media and fiction, that we can witness different stories told by people with different lived experience than we have. Like I said earlier, Dragon Age Origins already dealt with some progressive themes for its time, and if social media and the cultural conversations online were in the same place as they are now, the same people would have blamed Origins back then. The reactions from some people, you know who I'm talking about if you spent even a minute on gaming Twitter or Twitch, is just pure grief to push an agenda. They are not even trying to hide it, and it ruins any nuance a conversation about this game could have had. Like, there are valid reasons to criticize the game for. I totally understand that people might not enjoy the game if they don't end up clicking with the characters, or the action combat isn't their cup of tea, or they are like really against the modern corny writing. But saying the Veilguard is 1 out of 10 stars or something like that is just being dishonest. Even if you're not the biggest fan of Veilguard, most people would probably agree that this is still a good step in the right direction for BioWare after Andromeda, Inquisition and Anthem of delivering a focused experience with big emphasis on characters. And I think the end product looks even better when you consider that this was built on the scrapped live service game that Veilguard, or Dreadwolf back then, was going to be. And I think that deserves at least a little bit of celebration.
Next time a blighted dragon comes calling, it'll be the last time it comes calling.
Sorry, that turned into a bit of a rant, which I usually try to avoid, but I've been just so annoyed by the discourse around this game, especially when the heart of the conversation seems to be comparing it to a game from 2009, 15 years ago, which makes no sense to me. It's a different time, folks, and a different game. If you are considering to play the game, I highly encourage you to give it a shot. Just tune out all the nonsense online or possible comparisons and see what the game has to offer on itself. But thank you for watching, and I hope you found the review interesting. I encourage constructive discussion in the comments down below, because I do want to hear other opinions on the game, be it positive or negative, from reasonable people. And if you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you and have a great day.